I shouldn't have gone back. Not because it was wrong. Because I knew I'd want to stay longer than I should. It started with a leaking pipe. Not a metaphor, an actual pipe in her kitchen, the one under the sink that hisses when you tighten it too much. I was helping my roommate's mom, Laura. He was out of town. She didn't know a wrench from a screwdriver, and I knew just enough to pretend I did. She answered the door in jeans and a loose sweater that slipped a little on one shoulder. Not in a flirty way. In the way that said she didn't care who was at the door. That somehow made it worse. Better. God. I'm sorry about the mess, she said, waving toward the cluttered living room. I didn't expect anyone this early. I told her it was fine. I told her I liked mornings. I lied. I liked her voice before noon. The kitchen was warm from the oven. Cinnamon maybe, or apples. She moved around me, opening drawers, apologizing again. Every time her hand brushed mine when she passed the tools over, I flinched like I'd been shocked. She didn't seem to notice. Or she did, and she was better at hiding it. I got under the sink and tried not to look at the line of her neck when she leaned over me. She stood too close. Not inappropriate, just close enough I could smell whatever she washed her hair with. Laura didn't talk much while I worked. When she did, it was short, soft stuff. About her dog, the price of tomatoes, the broken latch on her window upstairs. You ever think of switching careers? She asked out of nowhere. What? She smiled faintly. You've got the plumber stare. You don't flinch at ugly things. I laughed too hard at that. She noticed, and for a second her smile lingered, like maybe she felt it too, that there was something hanging in the air between us. Too thin to touch, too loud to ignore. When I finished, she made tea. Mint, lukewarm. Her hands were cold when she handed me the cup. We sat across from each other at the tiny round kitchen table, like strangers trying not to become something else. I remember everything about that silence. Her foot brushed mine once. Neither of us moved. You ever talk to someone about things? She asked after a while. What kind of things? The ones you pretend don't matter. She sipped her tea. They always do. I smiled at that. You some kind of therapist? She met my eyes, really looked. I used to be. That explained everything and nothing at the same time. I didn't know what to say. She put her cup down, folded her hands, tilted her head a little, voice lower than before. Now let's talk about what you need. That's when something cracked open in my chest. A wordless awareness. That she saw something in me no one else had bothered to find. And I don't think she meant it in a professional way. Or maybe that's exactly what made it dangerous. Her fingers were still curled around her teacup, tracing the edge, but not drinking. I watched her thumb move in slow, restless circles. I don't know what I need, I whispered. She didn't smile. She didn't blink. But she reached across the table, and for the first time she touched my wrist. Just once. Still, that was the moment I stopped pretending it didn't mean something. I didn't move when she touched my wrist. Didn't breathe either. It wasn't sexual, not exactly. But it wasn't nothing. I told myself maybe that was just her way. A holdover from being a therapist. From all those years of learning when to lean in. But it felt warmer than that. Messier. Like the kind of touch you don't give clients. I stared at her hand. Her nails were short, bare. She had a tiny scar near her knuckle. A slice of white that broke the smoothness. I wondered if she cooked a lot. I wondered who used to sit across from her like this. Who used to be allowed in. She drew her hand back like she'd remembered something too late. Looked at her tea. Didn't drink it. I shouldn't have said that, she murmured. That thing about what you need. No, I said quickly. Too quickly. It was okay. She didn't answer. The silence twisted into something thick, unspeakable. I shifted in my chair. My skin was too tight. The kitchen suddenly too bright, too awake. I saw her then, really saw her. The half-tired look behind her eyes, the loose strands of hair she hadn't bothered to fix, the way her sweater was inside out at the hem. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. That was the worst part, because I couldn't stop imagining what it would feel like to be the person she let in anyway. "You okay?" I asked just to break the tension. She exhaled through her nose, a breath that almost became a laugh. "Yeah, just tired of talking to myself all the time." "Then don't." She looked up sharply, that same direct stare as before, like she was still deciding whether to open a door or lock it. "My ex moved out 6 months ago," she said. "We were supposed to grow old together. Then one day we weren't." I didn't know what to say. My throat burned. She rubbed her temple. "He said I stopped needing him. Maybe I did. I just got tired of feeling small every time I asked for something." I wanted to say something comforting, but my mind was spiraling too fast. Not with sympathy, but with the sudden need to prove her wrong. That someone should need her. That I already might. She stood and rinsed her cup. I watched her hands shake when she put it down. "You don't have to go right away," she said, not turning around. "If you've got time." My mouth was dry. "I've got time," I said. When she turned back to me, her expression had shifted, softened, but there was something bracing underneath, like she was preparing herself for whatever might happen next. She reached out again, slower this time, a touch on the upper arm firmer, longer. "I'm not your project," she said, voice almost too quiet. I almost said "you're not mine either," but I didn't, because I wasn't sure it would have been true. The thing about wanting something you shouldn't, it doesn't shout. It whispers. It seeps in slowly, through a look that lasts too long or a silence that stretches just 1 second past polite. By the time you realize what's happening, it's already inside you. Laura poured more tea we weren't going to drink. She didn't sit this time, just leaned against the counter, arms crossed loosely, like she wasn't sure what version of herself to be with me now. "I used to be good at boundaries," she said, not looking at me. "I used to be the one people came to for structure." I swallowed. "You still seem like that." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "That's the worst part. I still seem like it." I laughed under my breath, not at her, at how easy it had become to talk like this, to drop all the armor I usually wore around women, the bragging, the jokes, the pretending I didn't want to be understood. She made it impossible to hide, and I didn't know if that was good or dangerous. Probably both. She walked past me to grab something from a drawer, and her hand brushed against my side. Too soft, too accidental to be nothing. I held my breath. She paused, said nothing. We stood there, inches apart, both pretending to be focused on opposite things. "Why did you really come back today?" she asked, still not looking at me. "I told you. The pipe. You fixed it yesterday." I didn't answer. She finally turned. Her face was quiet, open in a way that made me want to put both hands on the counter behind her and cage her in. Not touch her, just be close. Feel the air go tight between us. And then her phone rang. Sharp. Real. A sound that didn't belong in the space between us. She flinched, reached for it, looked at the screen, hesitated. "I need to take this," she said, almost apologetically. "Yeah," I said, stepping back like I hadn't been inching forward. "Of course." She moved to the other room, her voice low and professional as she answered. Something about rescheduling. Client, maybe. The reminder that she had a life outside this house. Outside me. Twisted in my chest. I sat down again, fingers drumming against the table. Tried to pull back. Tried to remember she was 15 years older, my roommate's mom. Someone who probably still kept framed photos of a man she used to love. But then she returned. She didn't sit. Just leaned in the doorway, arms folded again. Watching me. "I shouldn't keep you," she said softly. I stood. "I can go," I said. "If you want." She looked down, then up. "I steady now." I didn't say that. And there it was again, the whisper. The permission without the words. I stepped toward her. One more step and we wouldn't be able to walk it back. I should have left when I said I would. One more step. That's all it was. My shoes on her kitchen tile. Hers not moving. We were standing face to face now. Too close for strangers. Too careful for lovers. She didn't touch me. I didn't reach for her. But something passed between us. Tight, electric, unspoken. Like we were both waiting for the other to flinch first. You want to say something, she said. Not a question. I almost laughed. You always do that? What? Know what people are thinking before they say it. She studied me. Her eyes softened, not like a therapist. Like a woman who used to know how to let herself feel things. Maybe still did. Only when they're loud, she said quietly. You're very loud. I looked down. My hands were clenched and I hadn't noticed. I don't know what I'm doing here, I admitted. I just know I didn't want to leave. That's messed up, right? Maybe. Her voice didn't waver. Maybe not. I looked at her, really looked. She wasn't polished. She was tired, brave, lonely. Her lips parted like she had something to say, but didn't trust herself to say it. Then she did. You make me feel. She paused, her breath catching. Like I could ask for something, and maybe get it. My chest ached. I wanted to kiss her, right then, but I didn't move. Not out of fear, out of respect. Because this wasn't a movie scene. It was two people with real lives and real pasts standing at the edge of a choice. Do you want me to go? I asked again, barely audible. She blinked. Her jaw tensed. I should want that, she said. But I don't. There it was. The crack. The truth. Her fingers curled slightly, like she was stopping herself from reaching out. And I hated how much I wanted her to lose that fight. Then, a knock at the door. We both froze. 3 short raps. Sharp. Casual. Too real. She looked toward it like she'd forgotten the world still existed outside this room. Outside us. Probably just a neighbor, she said. But her voice had changed. Not colder, just back. Laura, the polite one. The composed one. I backed away a step, throat dry. The distance hurt more than it should have. She walked slowly to the front door, peeked through the window. Then she turned. It's Mark, her son, my roommate. She didn't say anything else. Just stared at me. Wide-eyed, lips parted. Hands still on the doorframe like she wasn't sure which side of it she belonged to now. We didn't move. We didn't breathe. And then she whispered it. Not to me, not to herself, just into the space between us. What are we doing? What are we doing? Her whisper still hung in the air when the doorknob turned. Laura didn't stop him. She could've, should've, but she didn't. Mark stepped in casually, tossing his keys in the bowl by the door. Hey, Mom. He froze. Then, oh, you're still here. He said it to me, but his eyes flicked to her. Too sharp. Too fast. I forced a smile. Yeah. The sink started hissing again. Laura's back was to him, but I saw her spine stiffen. The subtle way she tucked her hair behind her ear like armor. Mark looked at the two of us. The distance between us. The silence. Something passed over his face. Something he tried to swallow. You guys good? Fine, she said, voice too clipped. Just talking. Mark narrowed his eyes, but nodded slowly. Walked past me to grab a soda from the fridge. The fizz cracked loud in the silence. You're not staying for dinner, right? He asked, not meeting my eyes. I hesitated. Looked at her. She didn't answer. I've got stuff, I lied. Just came by to check the pipe. He smirked. Right? The pipe. It was a jab, not a sharp one, but it landed. He didn't believe me. Maybe he never had. He left the room without waiting for a reply. Laura turned toward me, eyes wide, guilt written all over her face. You told him, I said quietly. Didn't you? She nodded. Not everything. Just that I asked for help. That we've been talking. Talking, I echoed. She flinched like I'd said something cruel. I needed to say it out loud, she said. I needed someone to know I wasn't just falling apart. I stepped closer. Are you? I don't know. She was trembling slightly. I reached for her, stopped short. You didn't have to tell him. I did, she said. Because I knew if I didn't, I wouldn't stop. That hit harder than I expected. You think I'm a mistake? No, her voice cracked. I think I'm the one who makes them. I stared at her, trying to swallow the ache rising in my chest. And then she said it. The thing that broke the room in half. You look like him, she whispered. My ex. When he was your age. I blinked. What? Her voice was raw now. Exposed. Not just your face. The way you sit. The way you laugh. The way you ask questions like the answers will wreck you. I didn't know what to say. I felt like I'd been thrown out of my own skin. That's why I kept pulling you close, she said. And why I keep trying to stop. She covered her face with one hand. God. I sound insane. I stepped forward, finally, and gently moved her hand away. You don't, I said. You sound like someone who's finally telling the truth. She looked up at me, eyes shining. We didn't touch. But the air between us crackled with everything that hadn't been said. I don't want to be a substitute, I said. Came out harsher than I meant. Too blunt. But real. Laura didn't flinch. She held my gaze like she owed me that much. I know, she said. Quiet. Tired. Honest. I stepped back, just slightly, needing air between us that didn't ache. Do you see me? I asked. Or just someone who reminds you of what you lost? Her eyes flickered, not with denial but recognition. She looked down at the floor, like it might hold a better answer than the one in her chest. I don't know yet, she admitted. I let that sit between us. That truth. It hurt, but it was the first thing either of us had said without hiding behind guilt or timing or too careful words. She stepped forward. But I want to, she said. See you, I nodded slowly. Then stop pulling away every time it starts to feel like something. She exhaled, not in frustration. In relief. You scare me, she said. Not because of your age. Because you see through me faster than people who've known me for decades. Is that bad? It's intimate. A pause. And I haven't let myself feel that in a long time. I looked at her then. Really looked. She wasn't hiding now. Not behind her calm voice or her posture or her logic. She was stripped back. Raw. And I felt myself soften. This isn't a fling for me, I said. It never was. I know. You kept trying to treat it like one. Like something temporary you could control. I know. She repeated, voice cracking. I'm sorry. I reached for her hand. This time she didn't flinch. Her fingers curled into mine like they'd been waiting. What do we do now? I asked. Laura looked at me. There was fear in her eyes. And something braver underneath. We stop pretending, she said. A beat passed. The silence wasn't awkward anymore. It was full. Full of choice. And then softly, like a vow, she added. If you stay for real. I tightened my grip on her hand. Not possessively. Just enough to let her know I was already there. I don't want half of you, I said. You're not getting half, she replied. You're getting what's left. And whatever I can build again. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't some sweeping promise of forever. It was two people scared out of their skin, still choosing each other anyway. A beginning, not the first, maybe not the last. But this one, ours. The strange, the moment when something stops being forbidden and just becomes real. It doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like her hand on mine while we wash dishes together. It feels like the way she still corrects my posture when I slouch, or how she forgets where she left her glasses and then blames me for distracting her. Feels normal. And for us, that's everything. We didn't dive in headfirst. We eased in slowly, carefully, like we both knew the damage that rushing could do. Mark never asked questions. Maybe because deep down he already knew. Maybe because he trusted us to handle it with care. And we did. We talked. A lot. More than I've ever talked to anyone. She told me about the man she used to love. Not in a way that made me jealous. In a way that let me see her scars without having to trace them with my fingers. She didn't need fixing. She needed space to be. And maybe so did I. I stopped needing her to need me. And that's when things shifted. I started staying over not just for the night but for breakfast too. I stopped making excuses about pipes or errands. I just came. And she let me. Sometimes she catches me watching her read on the couch. One leg tucked under the other. Glasses slipping down her nose. She always says the same thing. What? And I always shrug. Nothing. But she knows. Because what changed, in the end, wasn't just the way we touched or talked. It was the way we saw each other. Not as an escape. Not as a mistake. But as a choice. We still have moments where it feels like too much. She still pulls back some days. And I still have to remind myself that I don't need to rescue her to matter. But we come back. Every time we come back. She doesn't whisper in a therapist voice anymore. She doesn't ask me what I need. She just listens. And when I can't speak, she stays anyway. And maybe that's the thing we all forget. Sometimes love isn't about what you say. It's about who stays through the silence.